Hi everyone, this is Christy with Just Saying. Today we're just making a card for Christmas. This card here is my second of 14 weeks of Christmas cards. I've used Crumb Cake, Always Artichoke, Very Vanilla, a burgundy embossing powder, Vellum, and a couple of little brads. This card is a fairly simple card that will go together really quickly with the magic of cameras and film, no editing. So the stamp set that I'm using today is Joyful Christmas by Stampin' Up. I'm using the poinsettia, the sentiment, and the flower. Are we going into, there we go. Alright, so to get this card started, I have cut my cardstock at 5.5. This will be by 8 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.5. 8.5, 5.5 by 8.5. Scored it, so it'll be 4 1/4. So I'm just going to fold this here in half. It's been scored, but my scoring has been off lately, so I'm just going to use my bone folder. My Always Artichoke layer is actually hiding a couple of things. I'm going to take this leaf from the stamp set. Actually, this is what I'm going to do first. I'm going to punch out. I'm making sure that I'm off the edge here so that I still have my space for the layering background. I'm going to cut that out, turn it around so I can get a different angle, and cut this one out. So this layer is actually underneath, obviously, and it's hiding my little cutouts. So that's going to be set aside for a second. Then using Always Artichoke stamp or ink on the Always Artichoke cardstock, I'm going to stamp 2 leaves on that, which is about the perfect size. And with the magic of film and editing, these ones will go over there, and these leaves have been cut out. Perfect. That takes just a little bit of time, just following the edge of the leaf. Also, the vellum, I've saved you time. My previous video showed the actual steps, using your embossing buddy to get rid of any static that might be on the papers that you're using, and then stamping with Versamark, the clear sticky stick, sprinkling on your embossing powder, and then heat setting it with your gun. You'll get actually, I did this twice, and then the inner layer I've cut that out to give me a third dimension. So saving you the time of watching and hearing that heating embossing and then the cutting out the boredom of that on video isn't great. So I'm going to set these aside, and I'm actually ready to assemble. So this card, bringing it back in, and this layer, the card measures 5.5 by 4 1/4. The green layer is 5 1/4 by 4, and the white one, this one that I'm working with now, is 5 3/4. That gives me a 1/4 inch total difference, or an 1/8 of an inch reveal on the layer. Going back to my stamp set, taking out the stamp, Joyful Christmas Wishes. Joyful Christmas Wishes. I'm going to just line up the bottom of the stamp using my grid mat so that I know that that is straight. Just cleaned off my block. Straight down, keeping that straight on the stamp. Inking up the image in cherry cobbler. Real basic. I love these colors for Christmas. Okay, now I'm lining up my cardstock with the grid mat so that I can go straight down and straight up on the lower corner. I'm keeping about the same distance from the side of the stamp to the side of the cardstock and the lower part of the stamp to the bottom of the cardstock, and then just straight down. Hold it for a second, wiggle it a little bit just to make sure that I get all of the letters. Straight down and straight up. That's the stamping that I'm going to show you for today. My assistant is whispering in my ear. She's reminding me that the the ink is cherry cobbler.
Well, I think the shiny stuff on here is cherry cobbler.
It's actually not cherry cobbler.
What?
I know. It's so close that I figured it's great and it doesn't clash. So I'm just using what works together. Okay, so I need a little bit of piercing space.
I don't get it. Oh, mini net.
Yes. This is not Stampin' Up.
Yeah.
This is Stampin' Up.
Well, if it was Stampin' Up, it would probably be called cherry cobbler.
It would be cherry cobbler if they had embossing powder. I think they do actually have embossing powder, but I don't have it.
Aren't you going to use the mini ones?
No, not this time. Alright, so I'm going to place my layer of white and then my poinsettia. This is really okay anywhere that I put it because as long as it doesn't overhang a 1/4 of an inch on the top, it'll still be fine. It'll still fit within a medium-sized envelope or an invitation envelope. I'm going to offset the insert that I'm placing from where it was originally, so you still kind of see this layer in here, but offsetting it a bit so it looks like there's actually 3 layers of leaves, petals. Using my paper piercing tool, I'm going to take a circle and wiggle it around, make a hole. I have some gold metallic brads, a retired product from Stampin' Up, and place those in. I'm holding my 2 layers really close together, like on top of each other, so that the 3 holes match up.
I have poked in one before.
You've poked in one before. You've poked in a brad before?
Remember?
Yep.
I've done that.
Okay, so flipping it over carefully, I did actually just lose a brad, so I just put it back into place. I'm just pulling apart the feet of my brad.
Now it's doing a split,
They're doing the splits.
which I'm horrible at. Sorry. I'm doing less.
Alright, brads are pulled apart, but they're still kind of there. So I just take the flat surface and I wiggle my finger to make them flatter. And that's what that'll look like. I can now attach the Whisper White layer to the Always Artichoke. And I'll hide the cutouts that I've done. And then these ones get put up on dimensionals, which I didn't get out. So just reaching for those. 2, 3, 4. I'm pulling off the backings. Oh, I missed the middle. Adding the dimensionals here allows for the brad's foots, the foots of the brads, the feet of the brads to not pop up or give that depth difference. So I'm just putting some dimensionals in the middle to avoid any sagging that might happen. And then I'm going to mount this onto my crumb cake. Again, oops, just lining this up. Good, press that down. And going for my glue dots. I'm going to take my 2 leaves. Oh, I forgot a step. Excuse me. My 2 leaves. I've previously mentioned Dina Rico. She is one lady that I subscribe to on YouTube. And giving texture to something, and flowers and leaves especially, this is a thing that she does. She'll just kind of wiggle the cardstock back and forth, giving it some texture, some dimension to the leaves. It also loosens up the cardstock fibers a little bit. I did try this with the Vellum to try to do some texture and round the petals of the poinsettia. I ended up ripping the little insert bit in half. So that's a lesson learned, that I can't do that with Vellum. So these have some wrinkly texture. Now I'm going to stick them onto my glue dot. Push those down. And then try to take the glue dot off of the backing and keeping it on the cardstock. I'm now folding over the rest of that glue dot to get the top of the leaf. So the bottom and the top of the leaf have adhesive, and just sticking that under the poinsettia. There we go. Finished card. That is my second of 14 weeks of Christmas. Next week I will be making a more modern take using the colors of Melon Mambo, Pumpkin Pie. I'm not sure if I'm going to use Pacific Point or Rich Raspberry, but I'm going to be using pink, green, blue, or purple for my next card. I'm excited about that one. I usually do a traditional. The third week of 14 weeks of Christmas will be a modern take. So I'll say thank you for watching this video, and I hope that you watch next week's.